I'm joined by the incredible Ryan K. Hough, if I'm pronouncing that right, a Freedom-from-Self-Sabotage Coach, a truth seeker, and a sovereign soul who's making it his mission to help conscious leaders live authentically and unplug from the mental matrix. Thank you, Ryan, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Angela.
How do you pronounce your last name? I should have asked you beforehand.
That's okay. No, it's all good. It's I've been called worse. It's Hough, like
Hough,
rough,
okay.
rough and tough. But yeah.
Okay. So just for the viewers, today we're going to explore how language is used to program compliance, why EMFs are more than a health concern. It's actually a frequency trap, and hidden codes behind language, legalese, and consent, and a whole bunch of other topics that just might come up in the spur of the moment. So just tell us a little bit about your background, Brian. You have experience in modeling and acting. How has this shaped your understanding of presence and embodiment?
Yeah. So I have some history in acting. So that was definitely my dream growing up, and I loved it. I watched films, and I wanted to basically be the character that's on the film. I wanted to inspire an audience, like I would feel like I would be inspired, and I wanted to have that influence and make a difference, and then that's somewhat transitioned into coaching for me. So as an actor, I think you definitely have an interest in human psychology, why we do the things that we do, and so for me, it was an easy transition to coaching, understanding the mind and the mindset and why people do the things that they do, and yeah.
Cool. And you're also a breathwork coach, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So mainly holotropic breathing, and I weave in some human design as well, and I'm certified in the Freedom-from-Self-Sabotage Coaching program, and so I was a huge saboteur myself, so I just figured it would be a good, easy transition, and so yeah.
Do you use your breathwork in with your coaching? Just curious.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because it really helps ground and empower.
It certainly
maybe
does.
If we have time today, we can do some breath work at the end.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Well, you've mentioned language at the beginning. So, for me, like, language influences so many aspects of our lives, but it mainly influences our imagination, our feelings and emotions, our posture, how we carry ourselves, and our breath. And so it's really, for me, the story that we tell ourselves to ourselves really truly impacts our disposition, and then how we view our reality, and we ultimately create our reality through the stories and through the language and the words that we use. So it's essentially just like an internal monologue that's constantly going, and we can sort of manipulate some of that through the words that we choose, but also how we're breathing. If we kind of get up into our chest, we're going to be creating a little bit more of anxiousness and anxiety. But if we're able to do some deeper belly breaths and low and slow, we're able to kind of calm our nervous system down. So, and then, it all impacts, right? So the story, the words that we're telling ourselves dictates, it's like a constant feedback loop. It influences the body influences the mind. So.
Totally.
Yeah.
Are you a nose breather or a mouth breather?
Yeah. I try to do as much, just in my day-to-day life, try to breathe through my nose, but of course through the actual breath work, we're trying to gain a certain state. So I find that when we breathe through the mouth, it definitely kind of gets us there a little bit quicker. It's sort of a bit of a hack, but of course, but more of a nasal breather. Yeah, I'm not necessarily just.
I actually do a lot of breath work too, and I've heard, in yoga, the main breath we do, like for the hatha practice at least, is Ujjayi breath, and that's like a nose breathing. but it's
Okay.
actually supposed to be a cleaner breath. And so, I mean, when you're doing breath work, like sometimes like you're doing breath of fire or whatever, diaphragmatic breathing, you're breathing through your mouth, but usually I feel like it's more on the exhale that I breathe out. I don't know if that is necessarily true, but it's supposed to change the facial structures if you are breathing through the nose, like your face actually becomes like saggier and stuff if you're constantly breathing through the mouth. I don't know if you know anything about that. I don't.
Absolutely. I think there's a gentleman named I can't remember his name. I think it was Nestor or something like that. I think he wrote a book about that. And so yeah, you can literally change the structure of your jaw, your entire facial structure just by doing what is natural, which is breathing through your nose, right? Rather than being a mouth breather. Sitting mouth breather.
Okay, so I want to jump into some of this language bit. Just curious, what like caused you to awaken to the dynamic and the constructs of the language that we use and made you become more conscious of it?
Yeah, so I mean, as an actor, words are definitely important. So and then how it's, and then of course the intention behind them. So I think it was again an easy transition. But then yeah, I guess I had an interest in natural law, and I feel that there's definitely a correlation between the Webster's vernacular, like the common vernacular of English language, Webster's dictionary definitions, and then there's also legalese, lawful Black's Law dictionary definitions. And it's almost two entirely different languages, essentially. And so that kind of got me onto this, like, what does that mean? For example, so like understand, it's in the legal term, it is not comprehend, it's actually, are you willing to stand under my authority? And so when we're speaking to agents of the state or in a courtroom environment, and we're being asked some of these questions, we have to be mindful of what they're actually truly meaning. And then of course, just through the mindset. So, again, I do some mindset coaching as well. And so it's the stories that we tell ourselves to ourselves. And so the language that we choose to use really truly impacts our disposition. And I used to believe that language, though it's true still, but language was used to be like to describe our environment, describe our experiences. But really, language actually creates our reality. And so if we can replace a word or add a word or take a word out entirely, it can completely change not only our mindset, but our meaning and our intentions. And so there's another great coach. His name is Mark England, and he talks about the should detox. And we all have sort of these shoulds that we all try to do, right? All like, and should kind of implies this pressure and obligation. I don't know, Angela, if you have any shoulds that you have, but I mean, for me, I have them constantly. There's these tasks that I think I should do. And so if I'm able to take the word should and replace it with could, instead of creating this obligation
or
and this
do
pressure,
or do not.
yeah. And so we take that should out and we replace it with could. It just adds a little levity. It's like, oh, okay, like there's more possibility there. Like, oh, all right. And then from could, I can't. I can't. I can go to the gym. Yeah. And then there's a little bit more, like, again, there's more less obligation and pressure, and there's more choice in that. And then eventually you can get to will. Yeah, I will go to the gym. And so just like those little tricks can certainly dictate the story that we're constantly telling ourselves. And of course, journaling as well. It's good sometimes this story is trapped in our mind, and it's hard to decipher what is fictional and what is factual. And if
So
we can get it on paper, creates a little distance between the story that's on loop in our mind, and then we can look at it on paper and we can realize, oh, interesting. Okay, we can become more of the observer rather than the participant.
okay. So back to legal language,
Yeah.
legalese. You mentioned about how it confuses people and stuff. How do you think it's been weaponized to disempower people without them realizing it?
Well, I mean, reality is that we live in a predatory system, and it's all based on contracts. And really, in essence, it's all offers. And so instead of looking at it as that there's a power struggle, there's a state, the government, we can really truly start to embody and empower ourselves by looking at everything is just an offer. We have choice in the matter. And so it's all based on either expressed agreements, expressed contracts, where you're actually truly signing with your signature, your sign of nature, or they're implied. So you're, they're a little bit more insidious. They're implied agreements where it's not necessarily a conscious consent. You're signing, or you're thinking that you're doing one thing, but it's in the fine print that you're agreeing to something else. And so essentially it's all contracts. It's all about, it's all commercial contracts. And so what they've done is they've trained us, so they've programmed us to dispute, to argue. And so, we protest, or we go to court and we argue the facts and the jurisdiction, etc. And so it's kind of quite the rabbit hole. But when you start to realize that they've essentially, through the 1933, at least in the States here, they've changed we're basically living still in an emergency, a banking emergency. And so they look at us as essentially commercial enemies of the state. And so when we dispute or argue things, they get us into this jurisdiction, and then they deem us a title. And so, from birth,
just throwing all the legalese at us.
Yeah. So from birth, we've been essentially, we've been created. The state created a business in our name. So the all caps name, the Ryan K. Hough, is basically a mini me version. It's a little LLC, or a little corporation. And me, the living, moral, sentient being, the living man, if you're not careful, they're always wanting you to take responsibility for that entity, for that fictional entity.
Basically, we're corporations.
We're not. I mean, there's two of you, right? There's you, Angela, the living, moral, sentient being that I'm speaking to. But then your all caps name that is either on your ID, the driver's license, or your Revenue Canada letter. There's that element. It's like you owning a Starbucks or a Tim Hortons.
Yes.
Right? It's you're not Tim Hortons. But what they try to do is they try to imply that you're responsible for that corporation, for that entity.
So in your view, what are the most common words or phrases in legalese that people misunderstand, and what are the real implications of that? I know you mentioned a few, but
yeah, well, understand. So it's standing under one's authority.
You got to understand.
Exactly. There's more of an understanding, right? So there's a Webster's dictionary of that, and if you look at on Webster's, for example, it would be like, well, no, it's to comprehend. But then you look at that on, say Black's Law dictionary, it has a total different meaning. I think I just recently made a post about their birth certificate, essentially. So there's
that's actually what intrigued me to ask you for an interview.
Right. So just you look at the word parents, right? So it's the pair that rents, and parents. And so essentially when you register your baby through a birth certificate, you're essentially handing over title to the state. And so now the state has an interest in your offspring, your daughter or your son. And yeah, it's quite the rabbit hole. It
It goes
sounds
deep.
conspiratorial.
I don't know if we can get down it all the way today, but
It is challenging for sure,
yeah.
and I'm still learning it as well. But yeah, it is definitely it's quite yeah, it can be, it goes through the emotions, right? I mean, like any kind of like almost like a grieving process, right? There's different stages to this process, and so at first
Yes.
might be shock and disbelief, and it might turn to anger, and then it turns to like, okay, well, let's find some solutions here. And so
Hmm.
but you can't skip over any of those. You have to experience all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many elements to it. It's really a spiritual process as well, right? So you
Hmm.
start to realize, okay, well, identity. Okay, so what is ID? Okay, and how to determine that is it's best to figure out what you're not rather than trying to figure out who you are. And so
Hmm.
you're not the picture that's on your driver's license. um, it's actually not even really yours, because when you think about it, like, if you were to be pulled over by someone who's wearing a badge and has a gun, they're going to ask you for your government. They're going to say like you have government ID, and so they're saying it right there. It's not even yours. It's the
Hmm.
government ID. You may have an interest and a claim on the picture that's on it, but it's not even really yours. But you keep on, through these implied agreements, through these implied contracts, we keep on answering and saying, yes, I'm that. I
Hmm.
am this. Yes, Revenue Canada or the IRS. Yes, I am to take responsibility for the claim that you're um, that you're wanting me to perform on. So perform is also just like another element of uh, of honoring the contract.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
definitely showing all the double entendres between the words.
yeah.
So basically, we're living in a linguistic matrix, is what you're saying. So in that regard, you mentioned there's two Angelas. The government entity and then the person. What does it really mean to be sovereign? Beyond the buzzwords, and how does that relate to how we use or misuse language?
Mm. It's it's quite the question. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's just understanding. It's almost like you look at it as it's a game. It's a, where do you play tennis, Angela? What's the surface that you play tennis on?
In the court.
There we go. So where would you go to dispute a traffic ticket?
The courthouse.
There we go. So either, it's all a game, and it's really
Hmm.
important for you to know who you are. And so it doesn't mean though that, like, you almost look at it as like a Monopoly game. So you're
It
playing
is a
Monopoly.
Monopoly game, actually.
It really is. So you're playing, you're either being, your little person is either I mean, person in itself is also another double entendre, right? So the person, we keep on thinking that they're just like real, like people, like living, breathing, but they're actually corporations. They could be even the United States is a person. And so, um, but I got sidetracked here. So Monopoly. So you're going to be either the car or the thimble. I just like saying thimble, but you're going to be operating that piece around the board. And so you can also look at it as like from a sports analogy, right? There's players that are on the court, or players that are on the field, and then they're represented by agents who are dealing with negotiations of contracts, etc. So you can either be the player that's on the court, which is what most of the system is wanting you to act it as, but you can also act as the agent operating the player accordingly. And so it's really just understanding who you are. It doesn't mean that you have to rescission everything and rescission all your contracts and try to get out of the system. That would be challenging, right? Because I do like going to the farmer's market, and I do like going to, being part of society. We don't want to necessarily get out of the system, and even that in itself is going to be really challenging, right? We're going to be living in a tree and eating grass. I mean, that's not going to be
That's going to be another interview.
So we want to operate and utilize our fictitious entity or our fictitious corporation that is in the all caps name to our advantage, and then take the claim back and not have the state or the government using that on our behalf. And then so what it means to be sovereign, I guess, sorry. I think it's really truly just understanding who, again, or understanding what you are and who you are and how you operate in all of this.
Okay, so what's the connection between reclaiming your language and reclaiming your personal frequency or your energetic field?
What is the difference between reclaiming?
What's the connection between it? So, like becoming conscious of the words. Like for me, like I try to avoid good morning, right. Just for that double meaning. So how can doing that and becoming conscious, even just like the positive self-talk that I'm sure you help your coaching clients with and stuff, how does that help us reclaim our personal frequency or energetic field in this system that's designed to like disempower us?
Intention, right? Intention is super important. I think, we can get sort of, we all have the ability to get really, anal retentive on the, we don't want to say good morning because it has this implication that we're mourning something, or
I say buenos dias. I love it.
And but I also know that there's people that really truly mean it. Like they're really excited, and their intention behind that phrase is genuine and it's authentic. And so I don't want to, I understand where they're coming from. And so I think it's just a matter of, again, intention is really super important, right? Like, there's a question that's on my intake form, and it's like, do you value truth over love? And I think in essence, they're really, not to give away the answer, there's no real answer. It's just, I love all the answers, and it just gives me an indication of exactly, but truth is really love, right? And what's important is that you understand, like you have a grasp of the intention. So I could talk to a friend of mine and speak to them, and I could tell them a truth, but if my intention is to mislead them or to hurt them, then that's not going to be, yes, I'm informing them and telling them the truth, but it's all a matter of intention behind it. If I'm informing the truth in a way to really liberate them, and so that they don't get hurt further, then that's going to be a little bit more of a genuine, authentic endeavor. And so so intention is huge. And then of course, I think I'm just going to repeat myself.
Okay, so that's really interesting because love is it's what governs the heart chakra, and truth is what governs the throat. And most people are actually functioning in the lower three chakras, which is, safety, security, survival. Most people are in survival, and they're manipulated by their emotions, which is the sacral. And then the solar power is their ego, which can be governed by fear, or, if they're empowered, then their belief and ability to manifest. But the heart chakra is, it's the portal, and it's through love that we actually ascend into our higher selves. And then when you are functioning in your higher self, you can express truth in a loving way. So that is kind of what you said with the intention, but you can speak the truth with that intention, but that's not necessarily coming from your higher self. So they are kind of one and the same, but they're like an ascension.
Absolutely. Yes, I love that. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about EMF. We've covered a lot of this legalese, and we could just keep going, but
Yeah,
there's so
absolutely.
much to talk about there. How do you think electromagnetic frequencies interfere with our natural frequency and our sovereignty? I've noticed you posted a bit on this, so
Yeah.
enlighten us.
Well, it's mainly the non-native EMFs, right? The electromagnetic frequencies that what we're addressing, in the sense that it can be harmful, right? So it's this element of this next rad Doppler, big, like the golf ball looking things that are around, the 5G towers, um, the Wi-Fi, the smart meters. It's all giving off basically microwave technology, and so
Mhm.
I don't recommend it, but we've all probably had an experience with a microwave, right? We've all cooked some sort of form of food or reheated something, and what microwaves essentially do is they cook from the inside out, and so it dehydrates your food essentially. So it doesn't make it really. It's convenient,
With
but it's
radiation.
with radiation.
Add to
Exactly.
it.
And so what this is so 5G technology is essentially just microwave technology. And so
Mhm.
when you think about that, what that's doing, even though it's invisible and we can't see it, but we do know that Wi-Fi exists. It is a frequency, right? We have an understanding that we may not know how it works, but we know that it has an effect. That, our cell phone is not working. We're curious why. It's microwave technology, and so basically in 2019, when we like moved from 4G technology, which was a less of an intense wavelength frequency, but it could travel further distances. And so now you're seeing 5G is a stronger, but it travels um, less distance. And so
Mhm.
that's why they want
Why
to
we have so
basically
many
why they're
towers.
creating more and more like a grid. It's like a frequency fence. So
Mhm.
they're basically laying the entire grid like with all of these towers. And so they essentially want the control freaks, in my opinion, they want essentially to create the Internet of Things. And so they want to create, a smart television, a smart refrigerator, smart stove, smart, appliances, etc. And then how they can do that is by through this 5G technology. And
Mhm.
it's I mean, the literature is all out there, the research is there. It's basically it's a weapon. There's no way of getting around it. It's
Frequency
used for
warfare.
it is. Definitely a weapon used by military for crowd disbursement. Um, and yeah, the some of the and so it's a matter of just increasing that that frequency. And then there's that element, and then I believe there's also another element of this, all this LED lights, all of these like awful blue light, and now they're starting to implement, I don't know up in Canada, but down here in certain areas they're implementing some of this purplish pinkish hue light in certain, as street lights in certain areas. And they've done studies with pink light with inmates, and it actually increases a aggression
Mhm.
and behavior. And so it's like it just makes you, a little like have to you're puzzled. You're like, why is
Yeah.
that?
What's the
And
intention behind
what
this?
is the intention behind this, right? And why? And so it's all sort of encompassing as well, because there's also this other element, again back to the Internet of Things. It's called Li-Fi. So it's essentially kind of like Wi-Fi, but it's Li-Fi with light. And so they can track
It
and
also
trace
works
you.
as a double entendre because it's lie.
Right. Exactly. I love that. I hadn't thought of that. Yes. And so it is. They want to track and trace you, and everything is all smart technology, but it has a sort of this insidious element to it. And then it makes you question, okay, so if we are truly electromagnetic ourselves and we're electric, And so when we exercise and we need replenishment, we drink electrolytes to replenish our system and our bodies. And so they've been doing this systematically. There's an agenda that's been going on for decades, and it just makes you wonder why. So again, back to the legalese element, the art of inquiry is a powerful tool that we can all adopt, and we can start to ask questions, because asking as king, we can start to create we can stop outsourcing our authority by asking questions and inquire. And there's a thing called tacit agreements, where if we don't reply or don't respond to something, they're just going to continue to lay this all out. So spraying the skies with straight lines, which are not clouds, but then of course they're changing the textbooks by introducing them as these new serious clouds or whatever the nonsense is. And then combined with the 5G towers, and then combined with this whole new like awful lighting, LED lights, just take the health risk out of the equation. It doesn't look, it just doesn't, it's not very flattering, right? Like when you go to a department store, I'm sure they would they would be able to like have customers spend so much more money if they just change the lighting in the dressing rooms, right?
Lighting matters.
Lighting does matter. So your environment definitely matters. And so it's I'm not sure if I answered your question. I kind of went on a tirade there, but it's all connected when you think about it. It's all really truly connected, and it makes you question the like what is the agenda? Like why? Like is there do we really need to have the fastest internet ever through this 5G? I mean, they're gonna claim that you do, but at what cost? And
well, the thing is, it's also very unsafe, considering there's no long-term studies of the effect of this, and it's obviously like we are affected by radiation. They're just putting them all up like without our consent. But anyways, like you said, question everything. So since we are, not able to consent to a lot of these implementations that they're putting around us that affect our health and our sovereignty, what practices or tools do you recommend that we do to protect our energy, our energetic body from EMFs, and help us stay grounded and clear?
Absolutely. There's always a remedy, We don't want to be all doom and gloom. There's always options. There's always remedies. So, but I think it is important to understand what we're dealing with as well. And so, but yeah, like people can just essentially just look at like turning their Wi-Fi off at night. It's simple. When you're sleeping, you just want to create a bedroom, which is almost like a sanctuary. You don't need to have all these frequencies.
Sleeps so much better if you put it on airplane mode.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or even keep your phone outside of your bedroom. You can purchase Faraday bags that you can put your electronics in, and Faraday cages as well. Like they just stop the frequencies from emitting and pinging off of everything, right? Smart meters are huge, right? So smart meters, there's been, I'm not sure exactly what's happening in Canada, but I know
we have them too.
Yeah, I just mean in the sense of that you can replace your smart meters with what they call which is analog, which is like the former meter, which was before it was smart meter, because essentially, again, it's pinging, it's creating electromagnetic, but radiation. It's microwave technology from and it's also track and tracing. It's basically keeping a catalog of all of your behaviors and your habits in your own home. And so you can speak to the power companies and request to change your smart meter out for an analog meter. And or if you can't do that, if you're renting, or if you're concerned about your neighbors all about the technology, but you don't want that necessarily, you can request a Faraday cage for smart meters. I actually have one here. I just wasn't sure, but this is what they look like.
Ooh.
And they're essentially, again, you can just put it right on the smart meter. So you can put it on your own home, or you can put it on your neighbor's homes. You can obviously talk to them first before you start doing that. And then there's a thing called, I don't know, are you familiar with orgonite? Orgone?
Yes, yeah.
Yes,
And they're grounding mats, and there's all sorts of different
absolutely.
things.
Yeah,
Walking in nature, earthing.
absolutely. Get grounded, get yeah, the Schumann resonance of the earth, has
Mm-hmm.
a negative charge. So you wanting to remove some of the static electric charge that you're picking up on from all the plastics and the plastics that you're wearing, also all the frequencies that you're picking up on, and just getting
Mm-hmm.
grounded.
Yeah, like synthetic materials.
Exactly. And then Argonite is pretty cool. So it looks like, where's my camera here? So there is basically it looks like little hockey pucks. And so you're taking an inorganic material, which would be like metal shavings. Um, it's essentially, like aluminum or some sort of, copper in there. And so think of like pencil sharpener shavings. And then you mix that with the organic material of like a resin, like an epoxy,
Mm-hmm.
and then you put a little quartz crystal in there, and it sounds all
Mm-hmm.
woo woo, but when you think about it, like our phones have quartz crystals in
Yeah,
there. It helps with our
yeah.
frequencies. So what orgonite does, is essentially it doesn't necessarily mitigate or diminish the frequency, but it does. It's hard to describe, but it basically recalibrates it so it's not so harmful for you. And then yeah, and then just like, be conscious, be aware of the materials that you're putting on your body. So,
Mm-hmm.
really good, you just get back to like the more natural materials, like linen, cashmere, wool, um,
Cotton.
cotton, 100% cotton.
Mm-hmm.
And then your bedding as well. Like if you can think about,
Oh, it sleeps
replacing your
so much
bedding
better with linen sheets.
with linen sheets.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, um, you know, give your body, a gift, give your subconscious a gift by just providing some of that value. And
Mm-hmm.
again, yeah, you just want to try to, like, we're never going to get away. Like, technology is here to stay, there's no question about that, but
Mm-hmm.
there's ways that you can give your body a reset and just
Yeah.
create your bedroom as this sanctuary. And so if you can mitigate the frequencies that are penetrating you while you're, replenishing your body for those 6 to 8 hours, it will
Mm-hmm.
be so beneficial for you. And there's, of course,
Okay,
there's
so
so many. I'm probably forgetting them, but
it's okay.
yeah.
Let's just move on to that's like kind of external frequencies and how they
Yes.
affect us. Heart math shows that the heart emits a frequency 5,000 times stronger than the brain.
Yes.
So why don't we live more heart-led lives in a world that's so focused on mind control?
Man, it's crazy,
We're
right?
getting near the end. I gotta give you
Yeah,
some good ones.
for sure. So there's, well, I mean, I think there's more mitochondria in your heart as well than,
Yeah,
and more mitochondria in your gut as well, right?
yeah. We have the three brains.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, so the control freaks, they've learned that, they can usurp, who we are essentially is we are a set of programs, and we're either operating software that is either updated or they're outdated. And a lot of the programs that we've implemented in our lives have been implemented from, birth to 5, 6, 7 years of age. And so we
Mm-hmm.
may be walking around as grown-ups, but we're operating on this old software, and the controllers are aware of this. They're uniquely aware of the ability to manipulate the mind. And that's one of the reasons why I love human design and incorporating that is because it's adopting this idea of your own inner authority, and usually that inner authority is through the body, and so the innate intelligence of the body to guide you and to be the leader of
Yeah.
your operating system. And so, and relegating the mind to be that of the passenger, watching the film, so to speak, or watching the scenery and the trees go by as you're driving. And there's a quote, right? The mind is a brilliant tool, but it makes a crummy master. And so yeah, we're very susceptible to mind control, because we can talk ourselves into things and talk ourselves out of things. There's an innate intelligence of the body. Like, we may not be able to,
the heart and the gut are actually one of our intuitive sensors, right? And so the mind is what is controlled by the ego. So that's why it's easier to attack, because it receives informations from the senses, and well, there's more than 5 senses, but that's what we can be manipulated from,
100%.
Hear things, or the frequencies that affect us that we're not even like able to tune into, and seeing things that aren't actually real, like especially with AI now. So
absolutely, no, for sure, absolutely, it is. It is. It's insidious. They know how to hijack that. I mean, you just look at, I'm sure we've all experienced that sort of that gut instinct where we about to walk into a room and we just suddenly get that feeling of like, something's off here. So it's hard, because that's genius, that's intelligence speaking to you. And yet we've been conditioned to believe that we have to explain our genius or explain it somehow, or just disconnect from it, all this synthetic control, rationalize it somehow. It's like, it's fine. Yep, exactly.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you one more question, then we got to tie it up.
Okay.
If the heart is a magnetic and radiating vortex, do you believe that's why there's such an attack on natural coherence and harmony?
Yeah. Are you of the belief that the heart is a pump? I mean, I know that was sort of the old ways of thinking.
No, I'm not.
Yeah. So, I think there's so much more that we're not being told. But so the question is, do I believe that say it again? I apologize.
Well, that the heart is basically a magnet and a radiating vortex. And as we said, it has its own, frequency that's stronger than the brain. It can sense things like way faster, and it feels things on a soul level, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I think, and they've done studies where if you get into a meditative, loving state, it actually even magnifies even more. Yes. I mean, when you think about it, it's the aura, right? It's all connected. There's folks who are gifted who can see people's auras, and they can, and your heart frequency and how it's the frequency and the vibration that you emit. It's powerful for sure. And they kind of goes back to the EMF warfare, essentially. And so there's a war on, I think, on that frequency, on our own ability to to emit frequencies of love. And they also say, and I think there's a higher vibration than even love. It's authenticity. It's when you are in that state of truly authentic and being genuine. It has even a higher frequency than even love. And I'm not sure if I answered your question. I apologize, but yes, I do agree that. Did I not answer it? I apologize.
No, you did in your own way.
Okay.
Is there anything that you want to add to today that you would like to share with the viewers?
No, thank you for having me. It's been a great conversation, and I think again, just if there's anything that you can take away from this, just apply the art of inquiry. Asking questions is a powerful tool. You can just be curious, be inquisitive, and you'll be surprised by what you can get. It's creating a sense of authority without being aggressive. And
And
by
how can people find you and follow you?
Yeah, I have a website. It's Ryan K Hough, HOUGH.com. You can find me by my name on Facebook. I do have an Instagram as well. It's at From Ryan's Eye, all one word, of course. And yeah,
All
message
right.
me,
Well,
email me. Yeah, we'll go from
thank
there.
you so much for this conscious activation, Ryan, and for showing up fully and unapologetically in your authenticity.